Welcome to 21st Sports Recap and Reaction for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Carolina Panthers in their Week 17 matchup played January 3rd, 2016. We're going to go over the scores and the stats and give our breakdown and analysis for this NFC South Division rivalry game as the Panthers, with the win, would clinch home field advantage. Of course, if they lost, the Cardinals would still have to win for them to take it from the Panthers, but the Panthers had their fate in their own hands. With the win, they could clinch home field advantage in the NFC for the first time in franchise history. And to start things off, in this game, it was scoreless until with a minute and a half left in the first quarter, Connor Barth hit a 39-yard field goal to put the Bucs on the board first with the score 3-0 Tampa Bay over Carolina. Of course, that was set up by a fumble as Funches fumbled the ball. But now in the second quarter, Cam Newton would put the first points on the board for the Panthers as he scored on a 1-yard touchdown run to make it 7-3 after Graham Gano hit the extra point with about 12 and a half minutes left before halftime. Graham Gano would then hit a 49-yard field goal about 3 minutes later to make it 10-3, and then with a little over 4 minutes left before halftime, Cameron Artis-Payne scored on an 11-yard touchdown run. Graham Gano added the extra point, and it was now 17-3 Carolina over Tampa Bay. Jericho Cotchery would catch a 31-yard touchdown from Cam Newton with less than 2 minutes left in the second quarter. Graham Gano would add the extra point, and it was now 24-3 Carolina over Tampa Bay. Thomas Davis had an interception that set up the touchdown by Cameron Artis-Payne, but at halftime, after the touchdown by Cotchery, 24-3 as the Panthers were rolling. And then in the third quarter, Cam Newton scores on his second touchdown run of the game, another 1-yard touchdown run. Graham Gano adds the extra point, and it was now 31-3 as the Panthers scored 31 straight points at this point in the game after being down 3-0. Jameis Winston would score on a 4-yard touchdown run with about 5 minutes left in the third, and Connor Barth added the extra point to make it 31-10. And then in the fourth quarter, Cam Newton hit Devin Funches for a 16-yard touchdown. Graham Gano added the extra point. That made it 38-10, and that would be the final score as the Panthers would hold on to win this one in pretty decisive and dominant fashion against their rivals. They actually held the Bucs to a turnover on downs on their final possession of the game. But Cam Newton coming up huge as he ties a record for the most career rushing touchdowns by a quarterback. He ties Steve Young's record, and he does it in 1/3 the time. As it took Steve Young his whole career, it takes Cam Newton just 5 years for 43 career rushing touchdowns. And in this game, Cam Newton had 4 total touchdowns, 2 rushing, 2 passing. He was 21 for 26, 293 yards passing, 10 yards rushing off of 6 carries. As I said, the 2 passing touchdowns, the 2 rushing touchdowns, as Cam Newton makes a huge statement towards his MVP candidacy. I don't see how they could give it to anyone but Cam, as the Carolina Panthers have a franchise best record of 15-1, and for the first time in franchise history, sew up home field advantage. And the Bucs fall to 6-10 with the loss. The Panthers undefeated at home this year, 8-0, and the Bucs 3-5 on the road. But as for the Panthers, as I was saying, with Cam Newton, 21-26, 293 yards passing, 2 touchdowns passing, 2 touchdowns rushing. Mike Tolbert, the fullback, was the leading rusher for the Panthers with 10 carries for 59 yards. He also had a catch for 5 yards, giving him 64 total yards on the day. Cameron Artis-Payne, another former Tiger from Auburn, he had 14 carries for 44 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. He also had 2 catches for 17 yards, which gave him 61 total yards in the game. Devin Funches, 7 catches for 120 yards and a touchdown. Philly Brown, 3 catches for 58 yards. Jericho Cotchery, 2 catches for 52 yards, including a touchdown. And for the Bucs, Jameis Winston, 29 for 47, 325 yards passing, 1 rushing touchdown, but 2 interceptions, no throwing touchdowns. He had 3 carries for 14 yards. Doug Martin had 15 carries for 48 yards in this game. He also had 7 catches for 60 yards, giving him 108 total yards on the day. And Sims had 9 receptions for 74 yards and 4 rushes for 15 yards, as he ended up with 89 total yards on the day. Mike Evans, 4 catches for 99 yards as well, and Austin Seraphim-Jenkins, 3 catches for 48 yards. Now we look at the kickers. Graham Gano was perfect, 1 for 1 on the field goals, 5 for 5 on the extra points. And Connor Barth, 1 for 1 on the field goals, 1 for 1 on the extra points. And for the defense in this game, McLean had an interception. Thomas Davis also had an interception, as both of those picks set up scores. Addison with the sack. Love had a sack as well. And for the Buccaneers, Carter had a sack, Levante David had a sack and a forced fumble, Tandy had a sack, and McDaniel had a sack, and Alteron Werner had a forced fumble. Team stats in this game: 23 first downs for the Panthers, 21 first downs for the Bucs. On third down, the Panthers 7 for 10, 70% conversion rate on third down. The Buccaneers 8 for 16, 50% conversion rate. They went for it twice on fourth. They converted one and failed on one, 50%. Total net yards, 386 for the Bucs, 366 for the Panthers. On the ground, Carolina netted 111 and Tampa Bay netted 77. And through the air, the Buccaneers netted 309. Winston sacked twice for a loss of 16 total yards. And for the Panthers, they netted 255 through the air. Newton was sacked 4 times for a loss of 38 total yards. We look at the penalties in this game. 5 penalties against the Bucs for 65 yards. The Panthers had 2 more penalties at 7, but about half as many penalty yards at 33. Both teams had some fumbles, 2 for Carolina, which they lost, and 1 for Tampa Bay, which they lost. So both teams losing their fumbles. Then in the red zone, the Panthers were 4 for 4. That's perfection, 100%. The Buccaneers 1 for 3, 33%, as the Carolina Panthers are shutting them down there in the red zone, turning into the dead zone. Of course, they did get the 1 red zone touchdown. But the time of possession, 31 minutes and 50 seconds for Carolina, 28 minutes and 10 seconds for the Buccaneers. So Carolina coming up with a huge win. And that, the loss to the Falcons was kind of a fluke thing. And now they get back in the win column, back to their winning ways. A dominant victory as they head into the playoffs. That's how you want to head into the playoffs, with a win, and a big win against a division rival. And that puts momentum back in their corner. 15-1, home field advantage throughout the playoffs. And it's going to be really tough for anybody to go into Carolina and stop the Panthers from going to the Super Bowl. No team this year has beat Carolina at home, as they are one of the most dominant teams when they're at home. And with that defense, their defense is just amazing. They're unbelievable. One of, if not the best defense in the league. There's some really good defenses this year, but the Carolina Panthers take the cake. They are very solid up front. Their linebacking core is just spectacular. And of course, you can't say enough about that secondary, as they have been coming up big time all season long. But here, Cam Newton on the offensive side, showing why he is the MVP. There's no doubt in my mind, anyway. I don't really see how you can make a case for anybody else. There was a couple of people out there that, have done some pretty MVP-worthy, seasons in any other season. But in this season, it is Cam's year. And, of course, the Panthers look to take the championship. They've got the South Championship, but they're looking to take the NFL Championship, the NFC Championship, and then go to the Super Bowl to get the NFL trophy there, the Lombardi trophy. We'll see what happens. It's going to be fun to watch for sure, as the playoffs are going to be exciting. There's a lot of good teams in both conferences, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch, and it'll start next week in the wild card. Of course, the Panthers have that week off, and the Bucks, a rough season, but I believe they're going to bounce back and have a good year next year. It was a good year for Winston overall. You know, it's his rookie campaign, and I think the Bucks are moving towards a bright future, but not in 2015 as it is Carolina's year. But let me know what you think in the comments section below. Definitely interested to read your thoughts and opinions. Thank you very much for listening. It's greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a great week and a great weekend, and enjoy all the sports.